So on March 11th of 2010, ACLU and ACLU of Idaho filed suit against the Idaho Department of Corrections Corporation of America, and the Board of Pardons and Parole for the treatment of inmates at the Idaho Correctional Center.
Mm-hmm.
The Idaho Correctional Center is run by Corrections Corporation of America. It's a private for-profit entity that runs the facility, but the facility itself is owned and maintained by IDOC. So the reason that we filed suit is because the levels of violence, prisoner-on-prisoner violence, that was going on in the facility is 3 times higher than any of the other facilities in Idaho. There is a lack of staffing out at the facility. The violence that was occurring, guards were told by inmates that they were going to be attacked, and instead of protecting those inmates, they put them in harm's way. Some of the attacks were so incredibly brutal. For example, one of our plaintiffs has a permanent dent in his face, had to have staples in his face. Another inmate had his ear halfway detached from his head. These are lifelong injuries, and the Supreme Court has upheld that people go to prison as punishment, not for punishment. And if you asked anyone who is currently incarcerated in facilities around the state, ICC has become known as a gladiator school.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are some of the issues that came to our attention, and it was a clear violation of the 8th Amendment of cruel and unusual punishment, and the guards had a duty to protect these inmates.
Now, how long, or at what point in time did these instances of violence take, the specific ones that you addressed, take place?
We are looking at the time frame from November of 2006 to the present.
Mm-hmm.
Even the week that we filed this suit, it had been brought to our attention that there were 15 more assaults that had happened out at the facility.
Now, why do you think that this facility is so bad? Is it budget cuts, or is it sloppy management by ICC?
I think that when we think that when you have a private for-profit entity running a facility, what you're looking at is bottom line, and what you're looking at is how do you increase profits for shareholders. And the ways you do that is by limiting staffing. So in some instances, we have been told, and we also allege in our complaint, that there isn't enough staffing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we've been told that one guard would be overseeing 350 inmates. Additionally, when these fights do happen and the inmates have to be taken to the medical team, they should be provided with x-rays, especially when they have broken bones in their faces.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, what guards would tell inmates were, you can clearly see that your nose is broken. You don't need an x-ray. Well, of course, if a for-profit entity is running a facility like this, the way you keep costs down is don't give x-rays.
Right.
Additionally, there's a lack of transparency. And so when you go in there, what you're doing is asking a for-profit entity to see how they're running and managing a facility, when a state agency is beholden to the taxpayers and has to have a level of transparency.
Right. Now, the lawsuit sues for a monetary amount, but does it also sue for changes to be made?
Yes. So the bulk of our complaint is actually for what preliminary or an injunction.
Mm-hmm.
So we're filing for an injunction in order for changes to be made, in order for this violence to stop.
Mm-hmm.
However, the monetary value of what we are seeking is $155 million for one plaintiff who had already filed his own suit against Corrections Corporation of America. $155 million is 1 year's profit from CCA, and we had talked to this one plaintiff and worked this into a class action lawsuit in order to make changes for everyone who goes to that facility.
Now, why did you guys choose to pursue the 1 year's profit?
This one client already had a damages claim, and usually the way that damages cases go is there's usually about a 10-to-1 ratio. So whatever the cost of the injuries, you can ask for up to 10 times what those costs were. However, in cases where civil rights violations occur, and these damages for this client are for the rest of his life. I mean, he was left bleeding from his nose and ears for 15 days in his cell, consistently, having to see medical care, but they wouldn't give him x-rays. So what we did is we came up with the $155 million based on the profits. Seemed like a reasonable amount to ask for.
Okay. Now, you said that this is what happens when private companies run correctional centers. If the ACLU had its way, what would the ACLU like to see out at the correctional center out in South Boise?
Well, that's what our suit is asking for the court to step in now and take jurisdiction over that facility in order to get it back and running. And IDOC needs to step in and take responsibility for that facility as well.
Okay. Has the ACLU talked to Director Ranke about any changes they'd like to see, or has he been stonewalling?
We have not talked to Director Ranke specifically yet about the suit, but this is the way litigation works, is they're represented now by counsel. So, our hope is to be able to seek a solution that works and brings the facility back to being in line with the Constitution.
All right. Perfect. Thank you for your time.